Sarah Hartman reach out to the remaining members of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much. I realize that you're very, very efficient, so I'll leave that to you. Thank you. Okay. I'm unsure. Let's see how many members we have.
You have 5 members, including yourself.
Okay, 5 out of 11. Oh, Delegate Rose is on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think we can get started now. Is that enough? Okay. Crystal, are you ready? I believe we are live now. Good afternoon. Today is March 1st, 2021. And I'd like to welcome you to the Racing and Gaming Subcommittee Work Group on House Bill 940, which is Gaming Regulations of Fantasy Gaming Competition and Implementation of Sports Wagering. Let me also offer that the modified time is from 3 until 3:30. We've had to change that. Last week, we heard testimony and read testimony as well on this legislation. And today we will begin the process of looking at a number of different topics. And so, because again, there are several issues that we'll be covering, I'm going to call on our analyst, George Butler, to walk us through some topics and areas, beginning with the license structure and license costs. Once George has finished his walkthrough, then we'll open it up for member discussion. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Generally, if you will recall, licensing structure under the bill is governed by Section 9-1E-06 of the state government article. This would specify that there are 2 types of licenses, generally speaking: physical licenses and then mobile licenses. Physical licenses are divided into 2 categories. First, Class A licenses, which would be available to applicants who are video lottery operators or certain horse racing licensees. There would also be 5 competitively offered Class B sports wagering facility licenses. Under the bill, those could not be located within a 10-mile radius of a Class A sports wagering facility or any other Class B sports wagering facility. There would be 10 mobile licenses competitively bid. Application fees are specified under subsection B of that section. They generally would be $250,000 for a Class A license, $50,000 for a Class B license, or $500,000 for a mobile license. An applicant who is awarded a license would pay an annual licensing fee that is specified under subsection C. The licenses would be for a term of 5 years and would be subject to renewal with a renewal fee equal to 1% of the license's average annual gross sports wagering revenues for the preceding period. Taxes are governed under section 9-1E-12, which is on, page 26 of your bill. Generally speaking, there would be a 15% tax on proceeds from physical sports operations, and for mobile sports operations, either 15% for the first $5 million of proceeds, and then a 17.5% tax on anything in excess of $5 million. Are there any questions regarding
Thank
any
you,
of those
George.
matters?
That was a quick overview. Are there any questions from members of the work group, the delegation? Are there any hands up?
Yeah, Madam Chair, both Delegate Rose and I have our hands up on our pictures on.
Oh, yes, thank you. Delegate Lukey.
Sure. George, can you go over again the licensing fees? Did you mention those just now?
Certainly. So the application fees would be $250,000 for Class A's, $50,000 for Class B's, and $500,000 for mobile. There's an annual license fee. The annual fee would be $50,000 per year for Class A's, $10,000 per year for Class B's, $100,000 per year for mobile licenses.
I can only let one of you in.
Okay, well, Bill's trying to get.
You're not muted. There you go.
Once again, the tax rates would be between 15 and 17.5% generally.
Did that answer your question, Delegate Lukey?
It did. I appreciate it. I was just looking for the difference between the Class A's and the Class B's.
Okay. Delegate Rose.
Similar to Delegate Lukey's question, and unfortunately, I was having trouble hearing you, George. So Class A 250,000, Class B 50,000, and then what was the amount for the mobile?
$500,000 for the application for a mobile license.
And then 100,000 annual fee?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you just, so the Class A, can you just give us like the typical, what would be the Class A? You said those that have lottery?
Okay.
Those would be video lottery operators and then certain horse racing licensees. In this instance, it would be licensees for mile-long racing in the state, which is held at Laurel Park and at Pimlico, and also I believe it's a special event racing license for the State Fair Society.
Okay, so an OTB would fall into the Class B?
A OTB would apply for a Class B license as the bill is currently structured.
And as the bill currently reads, we're limiting that to only 5?
That is correct.
And from last year, from my notes.
Never mind, she got us up and running.
What? Are you talking to me? Sorry. So my notes from last year there were 5 OTB, there's only 5 OTBs currently in the state of Maryland at this time. Is that correct?
I need to check my numbers. I understand. I believe that is correct with respect to standalone OTBs.
Okay, yeah, because I would say that just right off the bat, I have a concern with limiting it to 5. If we're going to expand these licenses to include MBEs and other establishments to be able to try to get into this market, which, you know, I'm just going to say right out, and I said this last year, and I haven't changed my position. If we're going to bring in more revenue to the state of Maryland by expanding to sports betting, number one, I think we should be protecting our current businesses. You know, hopefully they're all still open after this past year, who knows? But I think we should be opening it, you know, to others as well. But I think we also need to take care of the ones that exist. So I just, you know, limiting it to 5, I think is extremely problematic for me. And then my last question, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, just
Absolutely.
so the 10 mobile at the 500,000. So these are the big establishments. These are the casinos. Is that right?
Sorry, would you say again for mobile?
So
Is that what
just,
you were
for the
referring to?
mobile, that would be the
mobile
big.
are going to be competitively bid, and I think that you can safely assume that yes, traditional gaming establishments such as casinos would likely be applying for that. However, it's not restricted to casinos.
Okay.
And they don't automatically get a mobile license.
Okay.
Also correct, Delegate. Yes, these are competitive licenses. Nobody is guaranteed a mobile license under the bill's current structure.
Okay, and I'm sorry if you'll indulge me. One more quick question.
Delegate Rose, please don't
Yes.
work session, so you don't have to apologize.
Okay. I was
It's really
just,
important that we get we air
Okay.
the issues out. Okay.
I appreciate that. Just as a follow-up, I was trying to write quickly. And what I understand the renewal fees. What was the tax rate for each of the classes?
There's no distinction with respect to the renewal fee regarding the various classes. And you can see the text of the renewal fee is, I believe, in subsection D. Yes. On page 16, it's D3.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
And then just as by way of additional information regarding the license structure, you can also look at 9-1E-09, which is on pages 21 and 22, and that explains how betting is conducted under the various licenses.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate Rose. Delegate Hornberger, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, I've got a number of questions, and if I go over here, we can jump back and forth. But the first one would be the way that you've described the licenses that are available for horse racing. Based on that definition, Fair Hill would qualify. However, there doesn't seem to be a
No,
Fair Hill is not.
Fair Hill is not included in the definition of horse racing licensee under section 1 of the subtitle.
Okay. And if said racetrack, because they have just placed the 5-star event there, and they currently offer pari-mutuel betting on roughly 9 races, if they did want to seek a license in the future, would they be barred from doing so the way the bill's written?
As the bill is written, that is correct. They are not included in the bill. Currently, they could apply potentially for a Class B. That's unrestricted physical.
Okay. The next question I have is, could you speak more to the allotment of licenses and how the minority preference goes into that? Because I didn't hear that touched on.
We
Sure.
haven't gotten to that part. Is that the next segment, George?
Madam Chair, I can speak to the general application process now, and if you
Okay,
like to
great.
go into greater detail in it in the future,
Okay,
I might be
thank
able to answer Delegate Hornberger's question quickly.
Great,
All right,
thanks.
thank you.
Generally speaking, Delegate, the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission would require the studies that have been conducted to date of the industry, and first would need to examine whether there are race and gender neutral measures that might be taken in order to address any disparity that's been identified with respect to the industry. If those race and gender neutral measures are not sufficient to address the disparity that's been identified, then in consultation with specified entities, the commission could look to race and gender conscious measures. And those would be the similar to ones that were taken with respect to the medical cannabis industry, where ownership percentages of minority and women applicants were a factor considered in awarding licenses. That's not to say that's the exclusive solution, but that might be a factor that could be considered.
I have some other questions, but I'll hold off and let the rest of the group go.
All right, we'll go with Delegate Parr, then followed with Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So George, you mentioned Pimlico under Class A. So as it's written, Pimlico gets Class A, but only during live racing days?
Yes, as drafted under 9-1809A1 Roman 2, sports wagering will be conducted at Pimlico on live racing days only.
Okay. And what's the reason for that? Why only on live racing days?
I think that's a question George can't answer. That's
Okay, understood. I'll save that for discussion later. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Delegate Barnes?
Thanks. Since you brought up the MBE stuff, you know, hopefully the next meeting that we have more of the minority participants on this call, being that we are really trying to talk more about equity and inclusion. I'd like to see more of a representation from that community on this call as well. But I want to talk about, there's a MBE sunset, George, on page 17, line 12.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is and why?
Sure. So as noted, this would be general to MBE, to any race or gender conscious measure that would be adopted. These measures are periodically reviewed to ensure that they're still necessary in order to address the disparities. And so, as with the state's general participation goals, those are also reviewed every 3 to 4 years, I believe. Please don't hold me to that. I'm not a specialist in procurement, but they are evaluated to ensure that the measures are still necessary. And then if they are still necessary, then those are extended.
Yeah, but the way it reads, it says that it's enforceable on or until July 1st, 2024.
And if the study, if a review, which there is a review provided for in uncodified language at the end of the bill, would support the extension, then you would have legislation to extend that date, just as you've extended, say, tax credits in the past.
All right. We'll okay, thank you.
All right, Delegate Horn, thank you very much, George, for fielding these questions. And Delegate Hornberger, did you have other questions before we proceed to the next topic?
Yeah, just, we're surmising a lot with this section in terms of will the parties that we want to buy actually buy, and then will they keep them? So my other question is, if for some reason, whether it be financial or what have you, one of these entities decides to go a different direction, what happens with said license and said category?
So there are regulations with respect to transfers of ownership with respect for via lottery operations, and maybe you would want to incorporate similar provisions in statute, or the commission could also adopt regulations as the bill is drafted with respect to, I believe that 5% is a threshold where approval of a transfer of ownership would need to be provided by the commission prior to that occurring. In addition, should a holder of a license surrender a license entirely, then the work of the Sports Wagering Application Review Commission would remobilize to review any application for that surrendered license.
Okay, and then the follow-on question to that is, one of the rationales for having the casinos and capping the number of casinos was to make sure that the big guys aren't choking out the little guys, and we're covering the state. So why are we going to auction? Why are we not prescribing these licenses to said brick and mortar casinos? And I'm talking about the skins, the mobile, would be the first part of the question. And then the second part is, what's to keep the biggest player in this game from buying up all the licenses at auction?
You currently don't have an auction process. That would be something for the committee to consider if you wish to provide something different than the application process. However, I'm not sure how you might reconcile the minority business equity components of the bill with a pure auction approach.
Okay, thank you. I think Delegate Buckle had a question too.
Sorry, Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's wonderful to see you. And I guess my question was more in sense of just to get a sense of where we are. It was my understanding or my hope that these numbers put in the bills with respect to the number of Class B licenses and the number of mobile licenses and how they may or may not be interlinked is, for want of a better term, a starting point. And I hope that's the position. We may work through the entire circle and come back that that's the right amount of numbers. But I know I've had offline discussions with Delegate Barnes and others and Lutke that maybe there's a way to increase or to change or to modify the numbers. So I hope everyone doesn't get locked into just, oh wow, it's going to hurt someone that I think is important to the process because it says only 5 or 10. Those are things that I think can evolve in the next few days to weeks that we work on the bill. And then that, I think Delegate Hornberger sort of dovetailed my question is one of the concerns that I have is really twofold. Number one, that we provide enough opportunities through the licensing mechanism for MBE and new players to the industry to have a fair opportunity to participate so that they're part of sports gaming in Maryland in a meaningful way. But number two, to make sure that though the casinos that we have invested that have put literally billions of dollars and create thousands of jobs into Maryland, that they don't get shut out or that they have a very clear shot to get those mobile licenses. I don't know, George, if you did any investigation into this on your own or not. My limited independent investigation, which is that's exactly what it's worth, limited, was that there are no other states in the country that have sports gambling with casino brick and mortar licenses that are not automatically tied into mobile. Because of the way that the system and the economics and the dynamics of it work, it's very difficult to have these casino operations that feel like, well, they don't have mobile or they might have to re-participate in a process to get mobile. So that's my hope. I'm hoping that we can work together to achieve those two models so that the MBEs get plenty of opportunity and that the casinos also are, I think, rightfully recognized as the tip of the spear in terms of generating revenue for Marylanders in gaming. And they're kind of the real reason that we started doing sports gaming discussions 4 or 5 years ago as we were getting behind all of the casinos around us. And I want to make sure that that's considered. But I appreciate the chance to offer those thoughts, Delegate Patterson.
Thank you very much, Delegate Buckle. And I think you're right on target. And from the discussions that we have, I feel we've made a really good movement towards reconciling and making sure that all the entities are treated fairly, because you summed it up correctly. We want to make sure that this bill covers and addresses the main focal points in House Bill 940. Are there any other comments before we close out?
I believe that Delegate Smith.
Oh, Delegate Smith, thank you. I'm new at this. I'm sorry. I have to manage both.
Madam Chair, you're doing a fantastic job. No apologies needed.
Okay.
First, apologize for my tardiness. I had to have a meeting with someone way above all of our pay grades. I think it should be forgiven that I had to be a little tardy, but I just wanted to just flag for the good of the order that I appreciate all the hard work that has gone into this. I know from over the interim to the moment we find ourselves in now, a lot of hard work has gone into a new approach in this bill than what we saw in the last session. And I'm personally very, very appreciative of that. The only thing I wanted us to keep in mind, just to kind of, piggyback on some of where I heard my dear friend, I think Linda Buckle is a new member of our committee.
That is my mother. I'm in my law office in Maryland.
I'm sure she's lovely, but the Buckle clan is with us. But yeah. I just wanted to say that I think that it's totally important for us not to question the intent of any of the parties assembled, namely our speaker, because I think everyone wants to see a more equitable and fair outcome, not only for the consumer, but for all of the potential folks that participate in the sector. But I just want to make sure that as we move forward in the negotiations and the conversations, that we separate intent from impact, because ultimately we want an impact that we all can be proud of. And I don't want us to get too caught up in the intentions of others, because I will always assume that everyone's intentions were noble and coming from the right place in crafting this legislation. But the details, as we hammer them out, it's all about impact for me, and I'm sure for most of my colleagues. So I just wanted to say that for the good of the order.
Well, thank you very much, Delegate Smith. And those were great closing comments, and I appreciate that. This ends, if there are no other comments at this time, we will be meeting for another work session, several work sessions. And I apologize again for the modification, but as I said before, there were some unexpected changes to our schedule. So until next time, we want to again thank you for being here, and also for the participants who were on board to answer questions should we have had them. Thank you, George. Thank you, colleagues, and we will see you again. Goodbye. Thank you.